So I just finished setting up this classical guitar, lowered the saddle and the nut slots. It plays great, but it is having some fret problems, and this is extremely common. So you'll have a guitar with super high action and it's not buzzing anywhere because the action is like a mile high. But when you get the neck relief dialed in and the 1st fret and the 12th fret action dialed in to where they should be, that's when the problems with the frets are going to expose themselves. And this happens all the time. So I won't get into that, but basically if you want a truly optimal setup, great fretwork is required. So the lower you go, the more critical the fretwork becomes. Now on this guitar, we're having particular problems at the 1st fret. So that's really bad. And I'm sure we can find other problems higher up. I'm going to give this whole thing a look over, and I'll show you my process for doing it, or at least my casual process. And what I mean by that is what I can remember while making this video. A lot of times I forget to add things. There's so much to know with this, and there's so many techniques and tricks. It's pretty much impossible in one video to just cover everything, unless it was extremely well planned out. So let me go put this camera on my tripod and get a little closer to this guitar so you can see what's going on while I work. First, get the neck straight under string tension tuned to pitch and with the guitar on its back. This is always the first thing I do whenever I'm doing any kind of fretwork. I like to use a 3 or 4 inch tall yoga block under the body of the guitar and a wooden block and rock and roller neck rest under the neck of the guitar. I do my best to get the entire guitar as parallel to the workbench as possible. Now I get out my digital action gauge. Please support the original inventor of this tool, Davide Bisoli, by shopping at his website, rectifymaster.com. I zero out the digital action gauge on the fretboard and then use it to measure the heights of the 1st, 7th, 16th, and 17th frets. These fret height measurements are to prepare for using a digital neck relief gauge developed by G-Tech Guitars on eBay. The first leg of the tool rests on the 1st fret, the probe goes on top of the 7th fret, and the second leg of the tool rests on the 16th and 17th frets when using the tool on a guitar with a 25.5 inch scale. If one of the frets that the digital neck relief gauge rests on is higher or lower than the others, it'll throw off our relief measurement, and that will make testing for straightness of the neck more involved. Fortunately, each of these frets is the same height, 40 thousandths tall, so we can quickly use the digital neck relief gauge to measure the neck relief accurately. The goal is to get the relief to 0, meaning the neck is not bowed forward or backward, but is as dead straight as possible. I got very lucky on this job, as this is one of the rare nylon string guitars that has an adjustable truss rod. It's accessible via an Allen head adjuster nut in the sound hole, and it's a 4mm Allen head in this case. I tightened the adjuster nut until I reached a 0 thousandths reading at the 7th fret with the digital neck relief gauge. Now to test the frets. The 1st fret is buzzing really badly, which would imply a high fret in front of it. Using a fret rocker, I can quickly see and hear that the 2nd fret is quite high. It's worst around the low E and A string area and bad up to the B string, but at the high E string, it's not rocking at all. Some people will try to tap the high fret down with a hammer, and sometimes that works. Here I'm using a small piece of dowel as a caul on top of the fret and a fretting hammer to tap it to see if it would seat the fret into the proper position. After a few sharp and solid taps and retesting with the fret rocker, it's clear that the fret was not going down. My judgment in this case is to use the Stewmac fret kisser to level down the high 2nd fret. The diamond abrasive will only level the 2nd fret while leaving the adjacent 1st and 3rd frets alone. After sliding a Stewmac string jack under the strings and retuning them to pitch, I'm able to use the fret kisser with the strings on, as the smooth edges of the tool simply push the strings out of the way as I work my way along the length of the fret, going between each string pair one at a time, starting between the low E and A strings where the problem is the worst. So let's see how it sounds after we took that fret down. So still a little fuzz on the E, the D, and the G. Weirdly enough, the A string seems okay. It's funny how that works sometimes. Yeah, D is definitely. Now, for those of you that are going to think it's because I had the neck straight and we got to back off on the relief, well, first let's see where it is in the playing position. Just about dead straight. It's like a 1/2 thousandth of relief. So it is not in a back bow. But let's just see what happens if we back off to a more conventional amount of relief. Say maybe a few thousandths or so. Okay, in the playing position, yeah, we're at 3 thousandths. Now I know that's not much. Personally, I don't like it much higher than that. Just a little tiny plink there. D is still bad. So the second fret that we got level, it's got a little bit of a gizmo going on there. Alright, now what if we go, I mean, I don't want any more than a few thousandths. So to me, if it's not working at 2 or 3 thousandths, it's just not working. You know, if the action is reasonable at the 1st and 12th frets, that is. But just to humor my viewers here, let's back off a little more. And let's see, we'll be at 8 thousandths. Still got that little, I don't know if you can hear that, but that fuzz on that note right there at the 1st fret on the G. It's still going. So even with 8 thousandths of relief, you can see that's not helping. So this is to dispel that myth that you just got to keep backing off on the truss rod if it's plinking at all. If the frets are not doing what they should be, you're never going to get that to work. So what's this at now? About 10 thousandths. Let's go a little more just to put this to rest here. And now we're really backing off on the truss rod. Okay, 12 thousandths. Now let's see what it sounds like. It's starting to get a little better. Now, we're getting a little bit of an improvement. That's still not great though. So you run into this problem where you're going to be backing way off on the neck relief to try to correct a problem that is really with the frets, and that is not the way to do this. So my general standard here is to get the neck dead straight, just like we had it before, level the frets under string tension, and the guitar the guitar should sound pretty good with a light touch and low action. Not ridiculously, it doesn't have to have ridiculously low action, but with a light touch and low action and no relief in the neck, up to I'd say 2 to 3 thousandths of relief, it should be working. So that's the standard I shoot for. I've personally never found a case where I've needed to go beyond a few thousandths of relief. Generally, people I have that come to me that like or think they like a lot of relief actually just like higher action. And I find on the whole, just, anywhere from zero is a little persnickety, if that's the word I'm looking for. That's what I set my guitars to typically. But I'll usually do 2 to 3 thousandths of relief and then get the action comfortably low. So, we do not want to just leave it at that and then back off on the truss rod and half-ass it. So what I'm going to do is go over the frets. So to cover all the bases here, I'm going to do a full fret level, recrown, and polish. And I'm going to do all the leveling under real string tension with an understring leveling beam. And the one I'm going to be using here is the Rectify Master Lite, of course, by Rectify Master. That would be Davide Bisoli of RectifyMaster.com. I highly recommend getting one of these. I do have the Stewmac fret bars as well, and I almost never use those pretty much for anything. This tool, it's lighter, it's narrower, which is better for following the string paths more accurately, and it's just easier to use. It's easier to hold. I just like this tool so much. And Davide is the original inventor and holds all the patents on understring leveling tools. So again, get a superior tool and please support the original inventor and get a copy of one of these at RectifyMaster.com. That's the Rectify Master Lite, also called the RM Lite on the website. But I'm telling you, I would not be enjoying fretwork anywhere near as much as I do if it wasn't for this thing. Let's see where that gets us. Just want to get the neck straight again. Under tension, tuned to pitch. Oh, and I am going to slide the string jack under, and to make sure everything is as accurate as possible, we're going to slide it under. And now I'm going to tune back down to E standard. With the Rectify Master Magic String Jack, I generally skip this retuning, as it not only lifts just 2 of the strings at once, but it also doesn't lift them quite as high as the Stewmac String Jack. I'm not worried about that changing the string tension significantly, but with jacking all of the strings up, I think retuning the strings is warranted. So with the strings jacked up, I'm tuned to standard pitch, and now I'm going to make sure that the neck relief is as close to 0 as I can possibly get it. So we're going to tighten this a little bit more, and then we'll be ready to level the frets under string tension. Just a little bit more. There we go. Understring leveling beams slip between 2 strings at a time, and this naturally results in leveling along the string paths. Imagine that you're leveling parallel to each pair of strings as you go along, rather than leveling parallel to the center line of the neck. The The Rectify Master tools are also light enough that you can use the strings like a fence. Gently press the middle of the leveling beam against one of the strings to align it along the string path as you level. Leveling along the string paths ensures that the playing surface under each string pair is level and also naturally forms a compound radius. People hear compound radius and worry that leveling the frets this way on a single radius board will ruin it, and that you need to use a radius beam or level parallel to the center line of the neck to maintain the original radius. But I've never had an issue leveling along the string paths, and I do it this way on every single guitar, regardless of the fretboard radius. So far, it's worked beautifully every single time, so I follow the KISS principle here. Keep it simple, stupid, and just level along the string paths. The comment section will be open to debate, as always, but in my experience, leveling along the string paths is the simplest and most elegant way to level frets. All that being said, the basic 101 process of leveling the frets is as simple as continuing to level until you touch all of the fret tops. Some people use Sharpie marker on top of the frets so they can clearly see which fret tops have been contacted and which have not, but my personal preference is to simply look at the surface of the frets without using a Sharpie marker. As long as you can see what you're doing, you're good to go. Alright, so the understring fret leveling is done. So that means every single fret top has been contacted by the leveler. Every single fret has a flat spot on top after being contacted, so some of them are really flat if they were particularly high, and the lowest frets just have a little flat spot. But all of them have been contacted. So I'm just going to get out the digital neck relief gauge and make sure that we have a reasonable amount of relief in the playing position before testing it. So we're right at 2/1000ths, and that is exactly where I want to be because this guy wants the action quite low. So I've got 2/1000ths of relief, and then we're right around 6/64ths on the 12th fret, open on the low E string, and maybe 4 to 4.5 64ths on the high E string. So that is quite low. So for now, let's see how the frets came out and how it sounds. So that sounds pretty good to me. You remember that first fret buzzing was horrendous before. So that's really good now. Now let's try the higher frets too and make sure those are all good. My patented fret testing technique. I actually just thought of that for this video, but it is patented, so don't go taking it or I'm going to come after you for royalties. Yeah, it all sounds great. So, the only thing to do now is loosen all the strings and recrown and polish, and we'll be good to go. So that's pretty cool. Crowning is simply restoring the rounded peak to the fret after leveling it flat. These pictures from Stewmac and Calico Guitar Works are good examples of a leveled uncrowned fret versus a leveled and crowned fret. I use a metal fretboard guard to protect the fretboard from the crowning file, and as far as crowning files go, I've used a variety. Here I'm using a Nicholson 21873NN, which I ground safe edges onto with a bench grinder. This is the main file recommended by Doug Proper, the guitar specialist, who I found on Instagram. The other main files I use are a Summit Tools ST8075 triangular file for stainless steel frets, a Stewmac offset crowning file, and the safe edge version of the Stewmac Z file. The three-corner files give you the greatest level of control, meaning you can crown irregularly leveled frets with great precision. With the Z file or concave files in general, crowning unevenly leveled frets is much more difficult and can easily lead to a botched fret crowning. Say half the fret, the bass side of the fret, looks like this flat spot here, and then the other half of the fret, the treble side of the fret, looks like this spot here, which is barely touched. Using a concave file, it's very easy to accidentally overcrown the side that was barely leveled before you've even fully crowned the side of the fret that's leveled really flat. Fret levelings rarely look even, and typically you'll have very flat spots interspersed with spots that are barely touched. So if I only had to pick one recrowning file, it would be a three-corner file with safe edges. The only disadvantage is the learning curve. Three-corner files don't hold your hand when crowning, so crowning to a perfectly straight, thin line is up to you. One strategy I've used is to use a three-corner file to get the crown most of the way there, then use a Z file to bring it home. The Z file has a much easier time maintaining a thin, straight line than doing it freehand with a three-corner file, so by combining both, you get the best of both worlds. The way I learned years ago was with a concave diamond file, using it to crown until the thin leveling line on top of the fret just disappears, and not to crown any more after that. Then polish. Later, I learned the method of leaving that thin line from leveling the frets untouched, and then polishing. This is the way I currently do it, though I've gotten great results both ways. To polish the frets, I use a piece of sticky back 320 grit sandpaper that I load onto my finger. I polish the sides of the fret primarily with light pressure and only lightly skim over the top to make that line disappear. The 320 grit sandpaper gets rid of the bulk of the file marks left by the crowning file. Then I use Stewmac fret erasers from 400 grit to 8000 grit to do the final polish. I usually use the metal fretboard guard and polish each fret individually, but for the frets higher up the neck that are closer together, using the fret eraser perpendicular to the frets rather than parallel allows you to hit multiple frets at once, just in case you're looking to save some time. And if you use an open palm grip, you can even save some wear and tear on your hands as well. For rosewood boards, I then apply some oil with a paper towel. Here I'm using fractionated coconut oil, but the most common recommendation is to use a small amount of mineral oil. I apply it, wipe off any excess, and then I use a healthy coating of Renaissance wax. Rub it on, then use a clean paper towel to buff it off. I've been using Renaissance wax on rosewood fingerboards for years now as a finishing touch, and I really love the satin look and feel, as well as the protection against moisture that it provides. For details on cleaning up maple fingerboards, really grimy fingerboards, and more, check the description box for more information. Alright, so the understring fret leveling is completed and it came out beautifully. So the guitar sounds beautiful, it plays beautifully, And that understring fret leveling is what allowed everything to come together. So you do a great setup, that's going to expose problems with the frets, and then you use the understring fret leveling to correct those problems, and now you've got a phenomenal setup with great fretwork, and everything just works. And it's a beautiful thing, really. So the final setup specifications for this are about 86 thousandths, or 2.2 millimeters, open at the 12th fret on the low E string, and about 72 thousandths, or 1.8 millimeters, open at the 12th fret under the high E string. And for the first fret action, I'm right around 18 to 19 thousandths on the E, A, D, and G strings, and about 15 thousandths under the B and E strings. And this is all with about 1.5 thousandths of relief at the 7th fret. So almost dead straight. We've just got the bare minimum of relief, about 1.5 to 2 thousandths or so. So when this guitar came in, it was about 175 thousandths, or 4.4 millimeters, for both the low E and the high E string open at the 12th fret. And it was around, I would say probably at least 32 to 34 thousandths at the 1st fret on every string, and it had somewhere around, I want to say 14 thousandths of relief, so it was quite high. Nylon strings are generally set much higher than steel string guitars, but that being said, without getting into a whole discussion about the action for this guitar in particular and where I got it set up, the main takeaway here is always know what your neck relief is, know what your 1st fret action is, and know what your 12th fret action is. You could also measure at the 17th. I know some people like to put a capo at the 1st fret and measure at the 17th fret to take the nut out of the equation. That's perfectly acceptable. And I go into this in more detail in my video titled Guitar Setups and Fretwork After 20 Years of Experience, Straight Neck and Understring Leveling, which I've linked to in the description box. I also mention a new action measuring technique that I've come up with, which measures the 12th fret action while a capo is on the 1st fret, which will result in an action reading that's about 10 thousandths lower than the open 12th fret action when the neck is set to 0 to 2 thousandths of relief and the 1st fret action is set as low as possible without buzzing. Measuring the 17th fret can be problematic due to fall-away fret leveling and the neck humping up or sloping down at the end, especially on acoustics. So measuring the action exclusively at the 12th fret has made setups a lot more consistent for me. But the main point is to take measurements so you know what the setup is. And it's 3 main measurements: neck relief, 1st fret, and then 12th or 17th fret action. Very, very important. So that's a wrap for this video. I'm probably going to work on chopping this video up into a separate, probably no voiceover understring fret leveling video. It's funny, my friend and mentor Steve Kubecka, we've commiserated about how people will, when we start describing the technicalities of what we did, you know, their eyes kind of start glazing over. It's like, oh, they seem really interested. It's like, well, how did you do that? And so, oh, well, you know, I got this nut and saddle sander, and I had to measure the exact amounts to get the bass side down this much and that. And you look over and you kind of see them, you know, doing one of those, or they're, you know, pulling their phone out and looking down, and you know. So I highly doubt this video is going to get more than a couple hundred views. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed kind of simulating being at a workbench with me. But I don't know. I don't know what the but is. This is why I stick to scripts usually. And Warren Zevon said once, I think he said, you pick up guitar in the first place because you're an inarticulate person. You know, that kind of. Do I have to really say anything else? Do I have to say anything else other than that? Tune in next time for more guitar everything right here on Guitar MD.